Words. Words break reality into pieces, creating illusions of isolated things out of an actual singularity. Ideas behind words take on a significance of their own. Volume 5 pieces expose words and ideas as artificial, to reveal the interrelated oneness, which is the essence of the reality you encounter. Traditions. Traditions become a part of you by the time you've grown up. They can have a value and a real downside. How about we explore both? The Essence of Reality explores how the psyche which you are creates the reality you encounter. Hey you found The Essence of Reality, a unique look at how life actually works. Here we inspect well beyond standard thinking to see how each of us attracts situations and thus creates our own lives. It's all about awareness, that is, perceiving how life works. And that cognition is only ever diminished by beliefs and common notions. We sure have a lot to cover, so enjoy this jaunt into meaning and explore other episodes. With a focus on words and ideas in this Volume 5 series, I pinpoint how those building blocks of our thinking create illusions. We learn before our first year has passed to think in words of whichever language binds our culture. From that point on, it becomes difficult to generate any thinking that doesn't come out in words. In fact, if you pay attention to your own thinking, you'll see an interesting process in action. The idea for what you are about to do or say is first conjured up in meaning. That is, intent that reflects your desire in that moment. That meaning-based urge then quickly coalesces into ideas and words that symbolize those ideas. Then your long-established speech pattern channels the meaning into a cohesive sentence, and your muscles respond in suitable gestures or other movement if your intent involves taking action. All of that, though, includes a very complex set of mind exercises, access of the subconscious to weigh values, dive into your store of word meanings and grammatical relationships. Lots happening there that is virtually invisible to your conscious self. In the mix there, during the process of thought to speech or action, is a pass through a major category of the subconscious mind, acceptable values in behavior. And that whole subroutine in your deeper psyche can rest heavily on traditions. This issue explores traditions in the light of their impact on you and your life. Tradition, of course, consists of ideas that indicate things done in a family or within a culture that have been passed along over generations. We'll explore some shared ones, things that people commonly do that we recognize as traditional. But then we'll dive deeper to look at things you do, quite without thinking, because they are registered deep within your subconscious store, things that may well deter your success. Tom Nair here. I speak from a unique standpoint. I've spent years clearing away deceiving ideas to achieve what I call clear awareness. Life works well when you see that you alone drive yours. So these videos are intended only to help you see past common misconceptions, to recognize how life actually works. In Western civilization, many long-standing cultural traditions dominate the calendar with near-mandatory events. Christmas, Easter, and weddings come to mind as most obvious. These are often celebrated and enjoyed, whether or not you're particularly religious. Indeed, all of these long-established traditions well predate the Christianity that has long since become woven into them. The year's end was already a customary Roman tradition before Christmas was created. Saturnalia to the Romans, it involved gift-giving and celebration. Christianity commonly latched onto many traditions, rolling them into its own practices. It made the conversion from pagan beliefs much easier if already accepted traditions paralleled established practice. So, a real historical character, 4th century Nicholas of Smyrna in Asia Minor, or Saint Nicholas, a generous giver of gifts, morphed into Santa Claus. His original day of gift giving, December 6th, over time in most Western cultures rolled into the Christmas celebration. And that December 25th date itself corresponds to the shift of the sun at solstice in its yearly precession, a truly ancient tradition to mark renewal in the lengthening of days, foretelling the return of spring. Long, long traditions these. Weddings contain many such traditions: bouquets, veils, bridesmaids, carrying the bride over the threshold, and lots more. These are all rooted in the past, traditions that evolve and change through ages. Bouquets. Bouquets used to be pungent herbs meant to ward off evil spirits. Did you know that? Veils were established at a time of arranged marriages, so the groom couldn't get a good look at the bride ahead of time and perhaps find it judicious to skip town. Bridesmaids were set up to confuse evil demons who might hang around as to which of the maidens was the actual bride. Oh, and carrying the bride over the threshold, that stems from days when a groom and his buddy snuck off to a neighboring village to carry off a mate. These and so many other traditions, candies at Easter and Valentine's Day, days to honor old soldiers or former presidents, are also commonly observed. They're a way of life practically. Mother's Day, Father's Day, the 4th of July, that's Independence Day tradition in the United States, remembering the establishment of the country, on and on. There are traditions that celebrate one's birthday with a party, anniversaries with, well, you'd better remember, a present, flowers, or hey, something. Funerals feature many traditions too, all woven into services, family connections, and remembrance. Now, the point here is that a great deal of our planning, our focus, and our values are centered around activities that are carried on by tradition. That is, because people learn to do these things as kids, continue the practice and teach their children to do the same. And you do them. So do I, of course, in many cases, because they are valued, mostly enjoyable, and bring meaning to the flow of the year. Nothing wrong with all that. But traditions exceed the obvious ones. And here some problems arise, some personal limitations you should be aware of. Remember, it's always about awareness hereabouts. Much of your stylistic pursuit of family is heavily influenced by your family or peer group traditions. Clothes you wear, how you speak, your attitude toward others. Growing up in a family and cultural environment, you simply absorb many behavioral traits, some from emulating others, some from authority figures, their suggestion, and their control over you. Within this sort of a personal tradition, you can find deeply rooted a slew of personal problems. For one, we tend to identify with our group, with our cut or class in society, and with our family or even outside influences. Doing so, we tend to wear clothes of the group we associate with, style hair, and hone personal values based on trying to fit in, on being accepted and not shunned. Through such cultural sharing, inadvertent absorption of self-doubt, of inner tension and conflict can be taken on just as firmly as overt traditions of love at Christmas and good family feelings at Thanksgiving. Inner negatives, deeply held resentments, self-deprecation, these can be absorbed via parental treatment, and such self-defeating elements, once absorbed and harbored within the deep subconscious, will always generate real issues in life. And these elements can contain every bit the traditional passage in family settings of the holidays and celebrations that pass through generations. My mother was a generally loving, caring person, sensitive, quite religious and unaggressive. But she made me be what she wanted me to be. and never ever recognized my personal nature, what I really was. It took considerable time and a great deal of introspection to recognize that qualified love, and jettison its limitations from my own self-image. In effect, she was passing to me a long tradition within Celtic Irish traditions of conflict. In this case, of forcing me into inner conflict. To gain love, I had to be what she wanted me to be. So, the overall point here is this. Through long-standing traditions, each of us absorbs behavioral standards and life practices. Many provide a richness and joy of sharing life within the family setting and shared cultural values. But some elements of tradition implant highly negative, self-defeating values into our deeper selves. In my Volume 3 pieces, my books and website, I provide tools for you to look within, find the negatives, and remove them. Some may be attached to parental love, some to traditional values, some to highly valued traditions themselves. If those inner traits impact you negatively, regardless of connection to family, cultural, or even national traditions, you would be very wise to find and consciously remove them. This issue explores traditions in the light of their impact on you and your life. In Western civilization, many long-standing cultural traditions dominate the calendar. Christmas, Easter, weddings. A great deal of our planning, our focus, and our values are centered around activities that are carried on by tradition. And so you do them because they are valued, mostly enjoyable, and bring meaning to the flow of life. Nothing wrong with all of that. But traditions exceed the obvious ones. And here some problems arise. Much of your stylistic pursuit of family is heavily influenced by your family or peer group traditions. Clothes you wear, how you speak, your attitude toward others. You simply absorb many behavioral traits, some from emulating others, some from authority figures, their suggestion, and their control over you. Within this sort of a personal tradition, you can find deeply rooted a slew of personal problems. Inner negatives, deeply held resentments, or self-deprecation. These can be absorbed via parental treatment. And such self-defeating elements, once absorbed and harbored within the deep subconscious, will always generate real issues in life. Through long-standing traditions, each of us absorbs behavioral standards and life practices. Many provide a richness and joy of sharing life, but some elements of tradition implant highly negative, self-defeating values into our deeper selves. If those inner traits impact you negatively, you would be very wise to find and consciously remove them.